All right, so you want to know what the fuck The Young Ones is all about?
It's more like, are you ready to have your mind blown by how fucked up and brilliant this show really is?
Yeah, forget that Wikipedia crap.
We're diving deep into this legendary shithole of British comedy.
Uncovering all of the dirt.
All the behind-the-scenes bullshit they don't tell you about.
If you thought you knew The Young Ones,
Think again.
you're about to get pissed.
The Young Ones was like a goddamn Molotov cocktail thrown right into the face of British comedy.
It was a giant middle finger to the establishment.
And it paved the way for a whole generation of comedians who weren't afraid to be batshit crazy.
Okay, so picture 1980s Britain. Thatcher's running the show. Everyone's either miserable or pretending they're not.
And then, bam!
These 4 total nutjobs hit the telly.
Vivian.
The punk rocker med student who's more likely to dissect you than give you an aspirin.
Right.
The hypocritical anarchist who worships Cliff Richard.
Talk about a walking contradiction.
Then there's Neil.
The hippie peace lover who probably smells like a head shop.
And let's not forget Mike,
The cool one.
who's basically running scams on everyone.
This crew was pure chaos.
But these guys weren't just some random weirdos they found on the street.
They honed their craft in the London stand-up scene,
Places like the Comedy Store.
where alternative comedy was just starting to bubble up, raw and unfiltered,
It was a movement,
ripping apart the rulebook.
pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable.
And these guys were right at the forefront.
Yeah, they formed this group called the Comic Strip with other comedy legends.
Dawn French.
Jennifer Saunders.
They were a force to be reckoned with.
Channel 4 took a chance on them.
Gave them some comedy specials.
And then the BBC realized they were missing out on something huge.
They snatched them up for their own project.
They wanted something fresh, something that would grab people by the throats and shake them awake.
And boy, did they get it with The Young Ones.
It wasn't just the characters, it was the whole approach.
Anarchic.
Surreal.
Constantly breaking the fourth wall.
It was like they took a sledgehammer to the traditional sitcom format.
And rebuilt it with duct tape and spite.
It was like a punk rock version of Three's Company.
But instead of wacky misunderstandings
You had existential dread.
and people getting electrocuted,
And they weren't afraid to get political either.
they tackled issues like class,
Culture,
even subliminal messaging.
but in this completely twisted way.
That left you questioning everything you thought you knew about comedy.
One of the things that made The Young Ones so unique was its satirical take on 1980s Britain.
Thatcherism was dividing the country.
Unemployment was high.
There was this feeling of unease and uncertainty about the future.
The show tapped into all of that.
But instead of offering straightforward commentary,
It channeled those anxieties through this absurdist, chaotic lens.
they were holding up a funhouse mirror to society.
And the reflection was both hilarious and terrifying.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just the political and social landscape they were satirizing.
They took aim at everything.
Cop culture.
Consumerism.
The very idea of being young in a world that didn't seem to have a place for you.
All right, let's talk about these iconic characters.
Vivian, pure, unadulterated punk rage, always ready to blow something up, literally.
And then there's Rick.
The self-proclaimed anarchist, who, let's be honest, is full of shit.
But somehow manages to be hilarious in his complete and utter hypocrisy.
How about Neil?
The hippie with a heart of gold, always getting dragged into these insane situations.
He's like pacifism trying to survive in a world that thrives on conflict.
Don't forget Mike.
The smooth operator, always looking for an angle.
He's the one trying to hold this whole chaotic mess together.
But he's not above exploiting the others to get what he wants.
Each one of these characters is a caricature,
But they also represent different facets of youth culture in the 80s.
all clashing together in this pressure cooker of a student house.
And then you have Alexei Sayle as Jerzy Belowski, their landlord,
He was this unpredictable force of nature,
constantly appearing in different guises.
spouting nonsensical pronouncements in his thick Liverpudlian accent,
He was like the physical embodiment of the show's chaotic energy,
often breaking character, talking directly to the audience.
reminding us that none of this was to be taken seriously.
He was like the voice of the writers.
Breaking through the fourth wall to say, "We're in on the joke, are you?"
It was a brilliant way of destabilizing the audience's expectations.
You never knew what was going to happen next,
Who was going to show up?
or whether the whole set would suddenly collapse in on itself.
Speaking of collapsing, those episodes themselves were like fever dreams.
Talking animals.
Inanimate objects coming to life.
Random cutaways that made absolutely no sense.
It was a constant barrage of absurdity.
You had to be paying attention or you'd miss some brilliant, insane detail.
It was like they took all the rules of television and threw them out the window,
They were constantly experimenting,
pushing the boundaries of what was visually possible.
even if it meant stretching their budget to the breaking point.
Like those live musical performances they had.
Nah.
Motorhead.
Damned.
These weren't just background tunes.
They were integral to the show's chaotic energy
They brought a raw, rebellious spirit.
that perfectly complemented the anarchic humor.
It's actually quite clever when you think about it.
By incorporating these live performances, they not only elevated the show's artistic credibility,
But they also managed to secure a bigger budget.
which allowed them to push the envelope even further in terms of visual gags and special effects.
They knew how to work the system to their advantage.
That rebellious spirit definitely resonated with audiences.
The Young Ones became this cult phenomenon,
Airing on MTV in the US,
gaining a global following,
people were hungry for something different,
something that challenged the status quo.
and this show delivered that in spades.
And its influence on comedy is undeniable,
It opened the floodgates for a whole wave of alternative comedy.
inspiring countless comedians to break free from the constraints of traditional sitcoms.
And to embrace the absurd,
The surreal.
the politically incorrect.
And those four guys,
Edmondson, Mayle, Planer, Ryan.
they all went on to have successful careers.
But The Young Ones remains their most iconic work.
It's a testament to its originality and its enduring appeal.
It's a show that continues to resonate with audiences because it captures something essential about the experience of being young, frustrated, and pissed off at the world.
All right, so let me ask you this. Of all those messed up characters, who is your favorite?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I have to go with Rick. He's such a pompous asshat, but his rants are just pure comedic gold. He's like this embodiment of youthful rebellion, but with a healthy dose of hypocrisy that makes him all the more hilarious.
Rick's a solid choice, but for me, it's Vivian.
He's just so unpredictable and unhinged.
Yeah.
Pure chaotic energy. You never know what he's going to do next.
Vivian is definitely a force to be reckoned with. But before we get too sidetracked by our favorite psychopaths, there's one more thing we have to address.
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Young Ones.
What's that?
The mysterious fifth housemate.
Oh, right. You've got to admire the balls on these guys for throwing in a character like that. In several episodes, you can catch glimpses of this shadowy figure lurking in the background,
They never explain who it is.
or why they're there,
It's like they're deliberately messing with the audience.
adding another layer of surrealism to an already surreal show.
It's brilliant. It's fueled all sorts of fan theories.
Like what?
Some people thought it was a ghost.
A ghost, really?
Others thought it was just some random dude who crashed a party and never left.
Honestly, knowing those guys, that sounds entirely plausible. Their house was a constant state of chaos. Someone could easily gotten lost in the mayhem and just set up camp in a corner.
The creators themselves have actually weighed in on this.
Oh, yeah. What'd they say?
Director Jeff Posner claimed it was just a random joke, something to make the show even weirder.
Which is saying something,
Mm-hmm.
considering how batshit crazy the show already was.
Right. But then you've got Lise Mayer, one of the co-writers.
Right.
She suggested maybe this phantom figure was just some partygoer who overstayed their welcome and never left.
So basically, they're just messing with us.
It just adds to the show's mythology, the sense that anything could happen, that reality itself was malleable.
Speaking of bending reality, there's another little detail about the show that might surprise you. A lot of it wasn't actually filmed in London.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah. There were supposed to be these London students, but they weren't even filming in London.
Nope. The exterior shots of the house were filmed in Bishopston, a suburb of Bristol, and many other scenes were shot in and around Bristol as well.
So all that talk about scumbag college and being in London, it was all a load of bollocks.
Well, the show is still set in London.
Okay.
It's just that they used Bristol as a stand-in for some of the locations. It's a common practice in filmmaking.
Right.
Sometimes it's cheaper or easier to film in a different location that has a similar look and feel.
Makes sense. I guess even in a show as anarchic as The Young Ones, there were still practical considerations.
Of course. But there's one thing they definitely didn't skimp on, and that was the music. They used it to their advantage in so many ways.
Yeah, we talked about the bigger budget thing.
Yeah.
And how those live performances added to the chaotic energy. But what else?
Well, for starters, the show's theme song was actually a cover of Cliff Richard's The Young Ones, a massive hit back in the 60s.
Which is hilarious considering Rick's obsession with Cliff Richard.
Yeah.
It's like the writers were deliberately poking fun at him.
Exactly. They loved playing with those sorts of contradictions. It was all part of their subversive approach to comedy.
Right.
And speaking of musical success, Nigel Planer, who played Neil, actually had a hit single in 1984 with his version of Hole in My Shoe.
Wait, the hippie with the lentil loaf recipes had a hit single. That's amazing.
It just goes to show you the power of the young ones. Its influence extended beyond television. It seeped into music, fashion, even political discourse.
Yeah. They weren't afraid to take the piss out of anything or anyone. Politicians, celebrities, the royal family, even themselves. No one was safe.
And they did it with such intelligence and wit. Even when the jokes were crude, they were never mean-spirited. There was always a sense of playfulness, a wink to the audience that said, we're all in on this together.
It's a shame they only made 2 seasons. Imagine the mayhem they could have created with more episodes.
12 episodes of pure, unadulterated genius.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to burn bright and fast than to fizzle out. And the good news is that those 12 episodes are timeless. They're just as funny and relevant today as they were back in the 80s.
Absolutely. If you're looking for a show that's going to challenge your expectations of what a sitcom can be, The Young Ones is it. It's a masterclass in alternative comedy.
And even if you don't get all the references, you're guaranteed to laugh your arse off. It's a pure, unadulterated entertainment.
And maybe feel slightly disturbed at the same time. But that's the beauty of The Young Ones. It's a show that stays with you, gets under your skin, makes you question everything.
It's like a virus. Once it gets into your system, it never really leaves you. So now that we've dug deep into this comedy goldmine, what stood out to you the most about this deep dive?
Honestly, it's the sheer ballsiness of it all. They had no filter, no fear, no respect for anything sacred. They just went out there and did their own thing. And in the process, they changed the face of comedy forever.
It's truly inspiring. It shows you what's possible when you throw caution to the wind and just go for it.
And they did it with such style.
Absolutely. So what about you? What's resonated with you the most about our deep dive into The Young Ones? Have you seen the show? Did you know any of this stuff?
Well, now that we've dug through all this crap about The Young Ones.
The characters, the creators.
The insane places they filmed this thing.
It's like peeling back the layers of a really pungent onion.
So what's the last layer? What's the mind-blowing revelation to send our listeners spiraling down the rabbit hole?
We've talked about the mysterious fifth housemate.
The music, all that chaotic brilliance.
But there's one crucial element we haven't really talked about.
What's that?
The intelligence behind the chaos.
Hold on. Are you saying there's more to this show than those 4 students trashing their house, getting into these insane situations, and spouting random nonsense?
So much more. The Young Ones wasn't just random lunacy. It was meticulously crafted chaos.
Really?
The writers,
those brilliant bastards,
they were weaving in social and political commentary.
Get out of here.
Literary references, even nods to classic cinema.
You're kidding me.
It's a show that demands your full attention.
Okay.
It rewards multiple viewings.
So it's not just a hilarious shit show.
It's a hilarious shit show with depth.
Exactly. Every time you watch it, you're bound to catch something you missed before.
A clever wordplay.
A subtle visual gag.
A hidden reference to some obscure piece of culture.
They were playing a game with us.
They were challenging us to keep up.
So The Young Ones is like a fine wine.
More like a vintage bottle of punk rock moonshine.
It's potent stuff.
It might knock you on your arse.
But it'll leave you wanting more.
And it's aged remarkably well.
Yeah.
The themes they tackled, social inequality, political hypocrisy, the disillusionment of youth.
It's all still relevant.
Just as relevant today as they were back then.
Mind blown. Who would thought a show about 4 dysfunctional students could be so damn insightful?
That's the beauty of The Young Ones. It operates on multiple levels.
Right.
You can enjoy it for the pure, unadulterated chaos, or you can delve deeper and appreciate the social commentary, the satire, the sheer brilliance of the writing.
It's like they smashed a hole in the wall of traditional sitcoms.
Ripped down the curtains.
And let the sunlight flood in.
And then they set the curtains on fire just for good measure.
Exactly. They showed the world that comedy didn't have to be safe, predictable, or polite.
It could be messy.
Confrontational.
Even a little bit dangerous.
And it could still be brilliant.
Bloody brilliant.
Fuck yeah, it could. So, dear listener, if you're feeling brave, go back and rewatch The Young Ones. But this time, pay attention to the details, the layers, the hidden gems.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
And if you've never seen it before,
buckle up.
you're in for a wild ride.
Just be prepared for a healthy dose of what the fuck.
That's The Young Ones, in a nutshell. Chaos, brilliance, and a big fat middle finger to convention. Until next time, keep it real, keep it weird, and keep questioning everything.
And remember, there's always something new to discover, even in the most familiar things.